Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. I'm Jenna, and on behalf of DreamBank, we're thrilled to have you with us for today's event. For those of you who have attended our virtual or in-person events in the past, welcome back. And for anyone that is joining us for the first time, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to DreamBank. Here at American Family Insurance, life's better when you're under our roof because when you feel totally supported and protected, any dream is possible. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and virtual experience designed to help people pursue, achieve, and protect their dreams. At DreamBank, there's something for every dreamer. From weekly events to immersive signature programs, special events, and ongoing content, our free programming and resources are designed to bring you inspiration, motivation, and support no matter your interest. Before we kick off today's event, I'd like to highlight a few upcoming DreamBank offerings. We have a great Hispanic Heritage Month celebration featuring keynote Saul Flores that will be held at DreamBank on September 19th from 5 to 7 p.m. There will be delicious Hispanic food, Latin music, dancing, and of course, Saul's keynote with grit. Also, registration for our annual Dream Summit is live, and you can find more details about our upcoming events and register for these events on our website, which is amfam.com/DreamBank. And now I'm thrilled to introduce you to our speaker, Mary Frost. Mary is a professional organizer and interior stylist who is committed to creating both functional and beautiful spaces for her clients. She specializes in serving busy families in Madison, Wisconsin, and believes it's possible for everyone to discover the organizational systems that will support their dream life. Please join me in welcoming Mary. Thank you so much for being here, Mary. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody who's already popped in the chat where you're tuning in from. We've got people from all over California, all the different states, lots of people from Wisconsin, which is where I'm based right now in Madison, like Jenna said. So thank you so much for being active in the chat and welcome. I'm so happy and excited to be here with you all. And I will just go ahead and get my presentation pulled up and then we can get started. But yeah, keep rolling in the chat where you're from. I love to see it popping up here, and I'll ask you guys to put a little more information in the chat as we get going with the presentation. So just give me 1 second to share my screen. And as I'm doing this, I really do want to say thank you for taking the time to tune in and do something for yourself, take this time for yourself. And we will get started here. So because you guys are already here, I know that it's not going to take much convincing on, the importance and the benefits of organization. I think that you already know that on some level, otherwise you would not have joined this call. So we are going to focus a lot today on some of the actual things that you can do to get organized, because I think it's very common for us to know what would help us and what would be beneficial, but then actually taking the steps and doing it are a different story. So if you have something, if you can relate to that, I think there's all aspects of life that there can be that disconnect between, knowing what would be good for us, but then actually how do we do it and execute it is a whole nother thing. So that's something that I'm really going to focus in on today with you. And because of that, if you have a pen and a paper, or if you can grab one and there's one nearby, just take a second to do that. I'm going to ask you to write a few things down later on because you have already taken the first step. So congratulations for being here. But we are going to take some more action steps to get you going and get you organized so that you can reach your dreams faster, reach those goals that you have. And that's really my goal for this presentation, is that this information helps you do just that. So as we get started here, I'm just going to go over quickly, what can organization do for you? Obviously, it can boost your mood, energize you, increase your productivity. And there are countless studies on all of this. There's some amazing science and information on all of these benefits. Plus there's a ton more. I could probably go on forever about just how awesome organizing is because I love it. But, you know, just being able to find your stuff and not overbuy a certain thing. I mean, there's so many positives. And like I said, there's tons of studies, but I think they can be like a little, you know, you can read it in a study, but there's a little bit of disconnect even there too. Like, well, what about my life? What about me? So what I really want to do is take a second for you to just reflect and think about like everyday examples. So how organization or disorganization might, you know, impact your life. And I think, you know, it seems obvious, but when we just take a minute to reflect on our personal experience, then it can really like, I think, hit home for us a little more. So maybe you've had the experience of just like having stuff all over your desk, it's piled with papers, like you probably don't really feel motivated to sit down and like tackle that creative project or crank out a bunch of work. If this sounds like something that's happened before, if you've had this experience, you can go ahead and just type yes in the chat or, you know, like me too, something, because I think we've all been there. Same thing if like you've got a really cluttered kitchen, and this is not to like judge. I mean, I think this happens to all of us. And even as a professional organizer, my space is not perfectly organized all the time because it does take energy and work to keep it up. But if your kitchen's just got stuff everywhere, you're digging through cupboards to like trying to find the ingredients that you need to cook, you know, you probably don't really even want to go in your kitchen, let alone like actually try to cook and do something productive. So just like thinking about these examples, let's like flip the script, because what we want to get to is the exact opposite of some of those examples. So if you have an example too, feel free to just put it in the chat so we can all get some ideas. I'm just pulling a couple for sake of time. So when we think of the opposite, think of a time where you were really productive, like you got a ton done, you were feeling great, you were feeling energized, and try to recall like where you were, even if it wasn't in your own home, doesn't have to be your own space. So what was that space like? How did it feel? Like, I'm guessing it was probably pretty clean and pretty organized, right? So same thing with like relaxation. Organization can help us get into a more deeply relaxed, calm, regulated. We all want that regulated nervous system, right? So think of that environment. I know for me right away, I think of like going on vacation and you open the hotel door and it's just like clean. There's not a bunch of clutter, like there's not a bunch of stuff, or even like an Airbnb or a new space. Maybe you even have a house cleaner that like after they've come, you walk in the door and it's just like, like you can just tell it feels different. And that's what I mean. Like, we don't necessarily need a bunch of studies to know that organization is important and it can have these effects on us. So if you have any other examples of like times or places that, you know, you just felt really good, productive, energized, you can feel free to put them in the chat. But I think, like I said, knowing that organization can help with all these things and then actually doing it are two different things. So we're going to get into the doing it. And it's like, well, a lot of times people are not sure, how do I even start? Where, especially if you are feeling like, I have multiple rooms, I have multiple spaces, I could feel like I'm organizing for months and wouldn't get it done, like that overwhelm sets in. And that is a really common roadblock. So I just want to honor that. Like, if you've been in that space where you're like, how do I do it? Where do I start? I'm so happy you're here. And we're gonna break this down a little bit. I'm gonna give you some actual steps that you can take. So if you've hit those roadblocks, if you've been overwhelmed, you know, I'm here and we're gonna get down to it. I also want to mention the importance of activation energy, because if you felt like it's really, really hard to get started, that is so true. Like, I think starting is one of the hardest things to do because everything's disorganized. Maybe everything feels like a mess and it's way easier to like shut the door, pretend that room doesn't exist. turn on an episode of Netflix, scroll on your phone. Like, it takes a lot of mental capacity to actually get started. So if you've tried and feel like you haven't been successful organizing, I'm so glad you're here, and please don't give up, because it does take a ton of energy to get going and get started. But what I'm going to do here is break it down into some things that you can actually do. And it might sound silly, but some of these actionable steps, you would be so surprised how easy they are and how effective they can be. So if you've got a space where you just don't know where to start, set a timer. That's the first piece of advice I've got for you. Even if it's 5 minutes, you set that timer for 5 minutes. You say, I can go through these papers for 5 minutes, or I can start clearing off this counter for 5 minutes, or whatever it is. And then at least you've got a start, and you can say to yourself, okay, like, I did it. Maybe after the 5 minutes, you're like, okay, that's all I've got, you know? You take a break, you come back an hour later and do another 5 minutes. Maybe you can start with a 10-minute timer, a 20-minute timer, whatever you can do, just tricking your brain, because our brain really prevents us a lot of times. It tricks up, it stops us thinking like, oh, this is too big, why even bother? Maybe you've had, I know I've experienced that in the past with kind of that black and white thinking of like, oh, what's the point? I'm not going to be able to get it all done. So why should I even start? We want to move away from that. And a timer is a really great tool to use to do that. Another thing that I always tell people is start with a drawer. A drawer is really great because it's a small contained space, especially if you know, pick a small drawer, like make it easy on yourself. Okay. So you can take everything out of there. Maybe as you're taking stuff out, you're deciding like, oh, I don't need this. I didn't even know this was in here. You can get a little donation pile started. Maybe some of it's trash, and you can pull everything out of that drawer and start to group it. You know, what can I trash, donate? What other little groups have I got? What am I keeping in this drawer? And the good thing about it is it's probably not going to take you like 3 or 4 hours to just do one drawer, you know? So pick a small one, and that can get you over that activation energy that you need, that kind of feeling stuck. Another thing is to break up your decluttering and your organizing. So decluttering is just like an organizer's term for sorting through things, going through stuff, making that like keep, donate, trash, those different groups. And really, like, if you have felt like your space is super overwhelming, you're always trying to clean, you're always moving stuff around, that's probably a sign that there's just too much for you to manage. And everybody has a different clutter threshold. So it just might be that you don't have the capacity to manage all of these things, especially if you have a really busy life, if you've got kids, anything like that. So that's a little bit about decluttering. And I would say you could break it up into like, I'm going to go through and declutter my closet. Maybe if that's a space that you need to do, I'm going to go through all the clothes. I'm going to try them on. I'm going to decide, you know, keep versus donate. And then that's just one day. You just focus on that for the time being. Organizing is what comes second, or the next day, or later at a different time. So you're not overwhelming yourself with feeling like you have to get all of that done at once. And if you want more information on this, I could talk a while about this topic. So I do have a free download that goes more in detail over this process, and even gives you like a little checklist of things that you could do, starting with decluttering something one day, organizing it the next day. All right. The last one is the one that I really want to focus on for today, and this is what we're going to dive into together. So aligning your organizing efforts with an existing goal or dream that you already have is going to make you more successful. It's going to give you a purpose for organizing. And I will give you some examples and explain what I mean by this in just a second here. And if you're like, wait, Mary, I thought we were talking about organizing and now you're telling me to have a goal or a dream. Like what? It's okay if there's not something that comes to mind right away, but I would guess that there's something that you're already working on. You have some dream because you're here. It's DreamBank. So I will give you some examples and hopefully it'll become a little more clear here in a second. So just a reminder again that thinking of this goal that is aligned with your organization efforts can help you narrow in your focus and get clarity for where to start. So if you are feeling like you've got so many spaces that need attention, like where do I even go? This is another avenue to explore. And I think it'll make you more successful because you have a higher purpose and a bigger reason of why you're doing this organizing. So what I mean by that is maybe, and I might be pulling from my own life here, maybe your goal is to cook more at home and eat out less. All right, that's something that I'm working on myself. So automatically you're thinking, okay, I'm cooking, like your mind goes to kitchen organization, right? You want your kitchen to be that place where you can cook with ease. It's fun. It's less of a chore. It's more of a creative thing. If your dream is to write a cookbook, if you want to be on Instagram sharing your recipes and like film them in your kitchen, this is what I mean by like, here's a place that you could start. You have this dream, you have this goal. So what is the space that correlates with that dream or goal? Like, where are you going to be working on that thing? And that can give you that focus of what room should I start in? And it could even be part of a room. It doesn't have to be like the whole space if that feels like too much for you. And we'll go over how you can then modify and create your own timeline to how to tackle that space and just like really get you the help that you deserve for carrying out this dream or this goal of yours. I thought of a few other examples if you're having trouble like thinking of something. Maybe, you really have a dream of being promoted at work. You need your home office, or even if you work outside of the home, you need that office to be a space that feels calm, where you can be productive. It's really organized. Maybe that's where you're starting if, that's your goal or your dream. If you are a mom who has young kids, especially, maybe you are just so exhausted by the end of the day, but you know that you need to prioritize yourself and take that time for yourself to do a bath, do a skincare routine, have some time for yourself that's going to be really restorative and energizing, rather than just like scrolling on your phone or popping on Netflix, which is not going to be like ultimately what you want. So whatever that self-care looks like for you, if it is something like baths or skincare or everything showers, having your bathroom organized, you've got candles, it's a serene place, it can be that restorative place for you, then there's a perfect place to start. Okay, I really want to make my bathroom like my happy place, my place that I can go to when I'm prioritizing myself, because that's my goal. And then a last example, maybe you just want to like get better sleep or get more sleep. You want that relaxing environment. So your bedroom might be where you get started. So those are just a few. I hope that those examples have helped get your wheels turning, so that you can be thinking of like, what is something that I want to work on and what space correlates with that. What I know from working with clients and just from myself is waiting around for motivation won't work. I mean, I hope that this is inspiring for you to get going, but still just expecting that you're going to have motivation every day to tackle these projects isn't really how it's going to go. So action is the best way. Take action. You've already started by being on this call, and we're going to keep going. This is where that pen and paper or Post-it, whatever you have nearby, even if it's just a note on your phone or something, that you can just take a quick second and write down a goal or a dream you have. Maybe it's something that you're already working on. It can be something small. It doesn't have to necessarily be even like a goal that you're working on in your home space. Like if your goal is to get to the gym 4 times a week, you can still organize your workout clothes and that drawer of your dresser. I mean, if you're looking for a smaller project. So there's always some space that's going to help you be more productive and be more organized. That's going to correlate with the goal of yours. So that is step one. Just write that down, and bonus if you want to also pop it in the chat. Maybe you have a similar goal to somebody else who's on here, and you can kind of, or if you have something that you know you're working on and you put it in the chat, that can also help other people get their ideas of what they're working on. Then the second step is going to be write down the space that correlates with that goal. So I already gave some examples, like if you want to write a cookbook, you're going to be in the kitchen a lot. Your focus for organization is going to be your kitchen. And if you have like trouble with that or anything, we probably will have some time for questions in a second at the end. So yeah, and you can always just throw anything in the chat and we can try to make sure we get to it. So after you have your goal, you know, that's your larger why. So when you're organizing and there's stuff everywhere, and I call it the messy middle, you might be like, what am I doing sitting here with all my makeup on the counter and all my products? It's like, think of that bigger reason that's gonna keep you going and get you over that hump when you're in the middle and it like kind of feels like chaos, because that often happens. That's also very normal. So you've got your larger goal, you've got that space that you're going to work on. Now I want you to start thinking of some like sub steps you can take in that space. So like if I say I want to organize my kitchen, there's obviously a lot to the kitchen. I might want to break it down like, okay, I'm going to go through my pantry one day and throw away all the expired food. Then I'm going to go through my pantry and like group things into categories. Like this is my pasta section, this is my dinner section, these are my spices, whatever. And then maybe another day I'm going to actually organize the pantry. Then I'm going to declutter, 4 of my drawers another day. I'm going to organize those drawers another day. You can really customize this and break it down into steps that are going to be realistic and reasonable for you. Because like I said, I know that you're busy and, this is like adding one more thing in, but I really hope that thinking of that larger goal, dream, or purpose that you have for why you're doing the organizing to be more productive, to be more energized, is really going to like carry you through when you start to feel stuck. And what I always tell clients is that if you are not adding it to your calendar, it's just not going to happen. So once you have these steps laid out, there's a couple different things that you can do. You can work backwards. Maybe you want to give yourself a deadline of like, I want this space organized by this day. So what do I need to do to make that happen with all those subsequent steps? Maybe you just have a list of each thing that you're going to tackle and you add it to days that make sense. You carve out that time. But it can really be customized to you. No step is too small. Little by little, it's going to get done. But just getting it in that calendar and making it a priority is going to help you get it done even faster. And I know something that I've also struggled with in the past is like, if I miss a day of something, then I feel like I have to start over or I give up. And I just encourage you to make the steps small enough so that like, if life happens, whatever, it happens to all of us, and you miss, Thursday, I was going to declutter these 5 cabinets. I didn't do it. Just do it on Friday. Move everything back, or you can double up. You might also see that as you get going with your momentum, maybe you do break things down like into really small steps, but as you do this work, it feels really good. You get the momentum going and you might be like, wow, I knocked out like 3 things on my list in a day when I had set aside 3 days for them. So don't be surprised if that happens to you. That momentum can really carry you through. All right. The other piece of advice I have as you're taking these actions and you're actually doing the work of organizing is to call on people through this process. Maybe it's a friend who just comes over, and even just having somebody sit with you. I know, especially if you have ADHD or something like that, that's called body doubling, where somebody else is just in the space or doing something productive in the space as you're working. And that can really help like keep you on track. Maybe there's somebody on this call who also wants to organize, their home office. Maybe you can like share contact with people, be that accountability for people, and just don't feel like you have to do it alone, especially if you're working in an area that's like really sentimental. Some things that I know I've encountered with clients, like when loved ones have passed away, going through their items, organizing things like that. Sometimes even just like doing your own closet and your clothes, there can be a lot of emotions and a lot of things that come up. So make sure that you have some type of support. And if you are feeling like I don't really have anybody, it can be me. I would love to support you. So you can reach out to me on Instagram if you want to DM me. You can tag me in what you're doing. I'd love to see it. I'm also on Facebook, but I would say Instagram is where I primarily hang out. And then you can always email. I'm in my inbox every weekday. So frostorganizing@gmail.com. I have a newsletter that goes out every Wednesday. So if you head to my website, and especially if you want that free download, you'll just be added to my email list and you'll get that newsletter each Wednesday. But even if you don't need support, I would really just love to see what you're doing. Tag me in a before and after picture or post, or just like send me a DM. I really geek out about organizing, so I love to see it. And I'd love to see what you do after this and where it takes you. All right. I know that we're like almost to the end here, but if you have any questions that you want popped in the chat, or Jenna, did anything come up? And if you think of a question at a later date, like as you get started with organizing, just feel free to email me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary. I think we probably have time for just maybe one or two questions. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. I know a lot of people are asking about that free resource, Mary, that you were talking about, and it sounds like they can find that on your website.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So if you go to frostorganizing.com, it should be really clear. It's in multiple places, and you can just click like download now, and then you'll be added right to the list.
Okay, perfect. Frostorganizing.com. We do have one question here. How is the best way to declutter and organize with boxes in the garage after a move?
Okay. So I'm guessing like maybe you've moved to a new house and you don't necessarily need all the boxes, like declutter. Or I mean, I would say the best time to declutter, honestly, is right before you move, so that you don't like spend your energy moving a bunch of stuff that you don't want, that's no longer serving you. But if it made it through the move and you like, I always say still better to let go of what's not serving you. But I would start with one box at a time. I mean, it sounds cliche, but that's like my thing. Little by little, it gets done. If you have, depending on how you packed, maybe you have things already grouped, like these are all the tools in this box, these are all the whatever kids toys and stuff in this box. So if that happened, I think going like by category in those different groups can be less overwhelming as well. And then yeah, just try to be as ruthless as you can in your decluttering. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be a minimalist and like get rid of everything, but if you haven't used it in like a year or two, or you just really don't know, like, why do I even have this? If you are thinking to yourself, well, maybe I might like need it later, the easiest way to get organized is to declutter, minimize, you have less stuff to deal with. It's taking up less of your time. So I hope that answers your question. You can always hit me up if you want more detail, and like I can hear more specifically about your situation.
Great. Thank you, Mary. So we are at time, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. But Mary, thank you so much for sharing your time and insights with us today. It was such a great session, and I also share a goal of cooking more and eating out less. So I'm definitely going to start my declutter journey in the kitchen. And with that, to all who joined us for this session, thank you for being here. Learn more about DreamBank's free upcoming programming at amfam.com/DreamBank and by connecting with us on our social channels. And if you're interested in revisiting this event or exploring past ones, our YouTube channel is the place to be. On behalf of the American Family Insurance DreamBank, we look forward to hosting you again soon. Until then, keep dreaming fearlessly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenna. And thank you to DreamBank. It's been an honor.